Hey folks, this is a video about music, about collecting records, and 80s indie rock. Now if you've heard of or you're a fan of this band, the Vulgar Boatmen, let me know in the comments because that's what this video is about. The Vulgar Boatmen, they were one of those bands that kind of fell through the cracks. They released this album, You and Your Sister, in 1989. And it was critically acclaimed by Robert Christgau, Greil Marcus, Ira Robbins of Trouser Press. It was called the Album of the Year. Another one thought it was the Album of the Decade. So they really did get a lot of press back in those days, pre-internet, when people were paying more attention maybe to the advice and recommendations of rock critics. But they were on a smaller label called Record Collect, I believe, and they just didn't have the support or the distribution behind them. In fact, a radio station in Chicago, WXRT, championed this band and this record, and people used to call in to hear Drive Somewhere, which is the last song on side A, because they couldn't find the record anywhere. They couldn't get a hold of a copy of it, so they had to just play it. It was the most requested song for a very long time for WXRT. But we're going to play a little bit of this to give you an idea of what it sounds like, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the other two records. Keep in mind that this is 1989, so there is a certain sound, but they were still a little bit out of step, and not in a bad way, but with the sound of bands at that time, even other indie bands. They weren't really part of the alt-rock scene, but they could kind of be a tangent off of those. You'll hear for yourself, but they kind of had a little bit of an early REM, a little Velvet Underground, a little Feelies, but also, you know, Memphis soul and older R&B and Buddy Holly, the Everly Brothers, stuff like that.
just sat down and wrote a letter. Sometimes I just want to change the world all around. Sometimes I just want to change the world all around. Oh, dug in soap tap water. Now I'm wondering if I ought to go ahead and start to phone her. Just wanna be alone with someone. All this to feel alright. Wish I know. All this to feel alright. That feels like I'm going down. What could it be? Wish I'd known it could feel alright. The whole house shaking, nights are yours now. I better hit my baby with my words now. I feel the whole house shaking, nights are yours now. This old room would be my world. Here I am, out of sight, where you are. Hold me tight, hold me tight, hold me tight, where you are. Hold me tight. Hold your hand, but I got my 19 reasons and it's 14 lines and there's 5 different stories, or maybe only 9. I know you wanna be my baby, you wanna wear my ring, but it's just too well adjusted in you. And when you're singing, I try to cry real tears for you. I try to cry real tears for you. I try and try to cry real tears for you. I don't answer. There's a car down the street. There's a car down the street. On the way home, on the way home. And your best friends call, you don't answer. They got something to say.
that was You and Your Sister, the first record. The second one, Please Panic, came out in 1992, and it's very similar. It's a little bit more stripped down, and the songs are just as strong as the first record. This is my favorite. This is how I was introduced to the band, by CD, because in 1992, the places that I went to look for records had pretty much only CDs. This would have been an import in the US from Rough Trade in 1992, so you just didn't see them. But I've had this CD for roughly 30 years, and I still come back to it from time to time, and it's still one of my favorites. It never gets old. It's I think it's a modern classic, because that's just my opinion, but you can actually go and stream this album as well as the third album on Spotify or Apple Music. But in 2018, a distributor or a record company out of Germany called Play Loud reissued these with some or all of the songs remastered. And you can actually still get these on Bandcamp. If you go to Vulgar Boatmen Bandcamp page, they've got all three records. Highly recommend them. I don't have any connection with the band or the label. I just am a huge fan. And I'm not going to play any samples from the other records because I think you get the idea from the first one. So that was 1992. In 95, the album Opposite Sex came out, and this is their third and last record. And I think they just had enough of not getting any traction, even though their live shows were always, huge sold out events. I think maybe they didn't tour enough, or they didn't have enough distribution on their records. Whatever the case, they were kind of a band that fell through the cracks. I should mention there is a connection with an early member of the band named Walter Salas Humara, who actually left before they came out with that first record, but he had a hand in producing it. Walter Salas Humara of the Silos, who split off from the band to start the Silos back in the early to mid 80s. This is their first record, About Her Steps. I've got a water damaged copy here. I'm getting a lot of reflection here. I have to turn it sideways. Anyway, great songs on here. Shine It Down, Susan, Start the Clock, Heart and Soul. Great debut record. Their second record, the Silos that is, was Cuba, and this came out in the mid-80s. It has Tennessee Fire, which was kind of a big MTV 120 minutes hit, and another great record. I think you will find if you play the Vulgar Boatmen and the Silos back to back, you'll hear there's some shared DNA in there. They're very different. I think the Silos rock out. They rock out a bit more. Maybe it's that Gainesville influence, something like early Tom Petty, Mudcrutch kind of thing, but with a little bit more indie Velvet Underground influence to it. But back to the Vulgar Boatmen for a second. I just want to point out the two principal songwriters, Robert Ray and Dale Lawrence. These guys had became acquainted with each other in Gainesville when they were both going to school, and when Dale Lawrence moved back to Indianapolis, they continued on a correspondence. They weren't even really musicians, or they weren't in bands at the time, but they started to, start their own bands, start writing songs, and they would send tapes to each other and collaborate on writing music and lyrics. And they both had their own bands going at the same time, and Dale Lawrence eventually renamed his band the Vulgar Boatmen. So that meant there were two bands called the Vulgar Boatmen, and the ones in Indianapolis tended to play out and two or more, and the Gainesville version were the recording band, more or less. And so when you hear the records, that's the Gainesville band. And if you ever see them in concerts, generally speaking, the Indianapolis band. But it's just an unusual arrangement that I've never heard of with any other band. So anyway, that's about it. I hope you got something out of this video and that you'll give these albums a listen and let me know what you think in the comments.